I'm Lindsay Smith with RealAgriculture.com. I'm joined now by Matthew Johnson. He's with M3 Aerial. Now, Matthew, tell me a bit about what M3 Aerial does.
I guess we have a two-pronged approach to our services that we provide. We help people get their drone pilot certification through our education program, and we also provide farmers, agronomists, and larger companies like that with drone services that provide crop health analysis and elevation mapping and that kind of thing.
All right. So in light of, last week, the federal government came out with some emergency measures, as they've called it, restricting the use of recreational use of drones. Off the top of your head, sort of what is your thinking on these? Were these needed regulations, or what are your thoughts on those?
I think they're absolutely necessary. I've had lots of questions from people who have both been taking our commercial piloting course and just people from the general public asking if there's rules for the people who are operating commercially, but there's no rules for people operating recreationally. Why can't people just fly recreationally or say that they're flying recreationally when they're actually doing other work stuff? That's what I've been asked. And so now this kind of takes that whole question out of the picture. Now, it really makes it difficult to fly recreationally, especially in the city. Like, it's very, very difficult to fly a drone inside the city now, unless you have a commercial certification, which is called a Special Flight Operation Certificate, or SFOC. And if you don't, then you're pretty much limited to kind of parks on the edge of the city where there's no houses within 250 feet, and there's no people and that kind of thing. It'd have to be fairly isolated, or outside the city in private land and that kind of stuff.
Right. So now, up until now, though, within the new regulations, I find that it would be incredibly difficult to meet those regulations within city limits, I would say for sure. But even in looking at them, I mean, it becomes apparent that even for many farms, this would eliminate usage on the farm. So, and maybe for the most part, it's that key about being within 9 kilometers of any airport, not just, the large commercial airports, but any airport. So do you see this as meaning that farmers especially should be pursuing potentially that commercial license and getting their SFOC, or what do you think should be happening here?
Yeah, so that's something that I've been kind of passionate about, trying to reinforce the fact that when farmers are using it on their farms for their operations, they're gaining a benefit from it. And what Transport Canada stipulates as a commercial operation is really anything where a benefit is gained, even if you're not making money from it. If you're using it on your operation for crop scouting, it's technically considered to be a commercial operation. And so now, even more so with these recreational restrictions that have come in, it's good practice to learn about these tools that people are using, and a ground school course teaches you about important things that otherwise people don't know about how airplanes work, and how just how these little machines are affected by weather and all that stuff. It's a lot of the time I think they're taken very lightly, where these are actual aircraft that are flying around in the air that I could be sharing airspace when I'm inside a plane with, and that makes me a little bit nervous. So I'm glad that these rules came in.
Okay, so and I suppose that's part of this. I mean, there's two parts to this. There's the actual learning to fly a UAV, not just safely, but to fly it at all, to make use of what a UAV can do on your farm. But then the flip side of this is exactly that, of making sure that you're aware of all the risks or the other possibilities of what could be happening with this. So if farmers really really fall under more the commercial application anyway. What is the process to become a commercial? Is it considered piloting? What is even the word that you would use?
Yeah, it's a UAV pilot certification, and that's what we provide people who take our course with. Now, in order to get an SFOC, you have to have that pilot certification. So you have to have taken a ground school course of some sort from some place, and then you have to have insurance for aviation liability. And that's separate from farm insurance, it's separate from business, it's a separate entity altogether. And you require a minimum of $100,000 of liability coverage there. And with those in place, depending where you're operating, you may also need to get a radio operation certification, which it's not too difficult to get or time consuming. It just takes a little bit of extra effort. But with those three things in place, then you can successfully submit an application for an SFOC. And it usually takes between 8 and 12 weeks for it to get processed and approved.
All right, and then how long is that good for? Is this something you have to renew every couple of years, or?
It's good for a year, and then although once you've already got your template made up that you've created yourself, if your operation isn't changing, then you can just submit the same one for the next year. If it's more or less the same, you can make small changes however you see fit.
Okay, so for farmers who have questions certainly about whether or not they fit under the recreational use and or commercial, is there information? Now you have a website, I believe. Is there information there about where they can take these courses, and are they online? I guess that's one of the biggest ones.
We have a few different courses that we offer. One is a ground school course where it's an in-class session, and it's a 2-day, pretty intense course. There's minimum time requirements that Transport Canada has outlined, and so no matter what course you end up taking, there's a considerable amount of work that has to amount to over 20 hours worth of time, whether it's online or in person. So our in-class course is kind of an amalgamation of both an online portion and the in-class stuff. And so our in-class course is 2 days, 8 hours each day, so 15 hours total, and some online study material too that people would take. And we also have a webinar course that's offered online completely, where you would log in and it would be a live webinar where I would be able to be working with people, and that requires more time, just more days, I should say. There's 5 days at 3 hours a piece. So, and then the online study package as well.
Okay, right. So it is certainly. I mean, it's not just a 20 minutes sort of write a couple multiple choice questions and away you go. To achieve this actually does take some commitment of time and effort for sure. Absolutely,
and with that. It helps ensure that people are serious about this and that they're taking the whole thing seriously. It's not a quick little thing that you can just get in 20 minutes, like you said. It's a commitment that you have to make to be able to use these things safely.
Okay, so and one final thing, I suppose, whenever we introduce regulation, of course, the discussion ultimately turns to enforcement as well. Currently, sort of how does that work currently? Is this mostly just with reports of, say, pilots, ending up seeing these things on approach or those sorts of things, or how does that work right now?
So previously, the way that it has been set up has been largely based on reports from pilots and that kind of thing, seeing drones. And as people are becoming more and more familiar with them at ground level, especially with these new laws that have come in, I think that there's going to be a lot more reports of drone activity happening. And up until this point, I don't think the authorities like the RCMP or Transport Canada have really had to deal a lot with the punishment side of things. But now that this law is in place and it's really making it difficult for people to fly UAVs, there's going to be a lot more complaints come in. and they're going to have to start taking action. So this is starting to get a little bit more serious, and so it's good in my opinion, but it also puts more onus on the people to make sure that they're being trained properly and they know what they're doing.
All right. Okay, Matthew. For anyone listening and curious to learn more, what is the website where they can read about what training is available from M3 Aerial?
Yeah, at m3aerial.com. You can click on the education tab, and our courses are listed there. That's M3 Aerial, spelled AERIAL.
All right, and you are based in Manitoba. I didn't mention that at the outset, but figured I should now.
Yeah, we have we are based in Winnipeg, and our services are extended across the country actually, and we're providing this course as a national course. We're running one in Brandon, March 28th, 29th, April 22nd, 23rd in Regina, Winnipeg 29th and 30th of April, and then one in Guelph in May.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Matthew. And we'll be keeping tabs on how this unfolds, certainly for the agriculture sector.
Thank you very much.